Hello guys. For a long time, Orochimaru has been quiet. However, I do not believe that he has changed his dark personality. I believe that at some moment he will appear with his evil side and may return to become a merciless villain. That's why I made this theory. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to support me. For decades, the name of Orochimaru was whispered among the shadows of the ninja world. A name that carried with it the weight of the forbidden, the echo of ambition without limits, and the symbol of the eternal search for absolute power. Even after countless defeats, destructions of bodies and ceilings, he never disappeared. He only waited for the right moment, the new knowledge, the gap that would lead him to the final step, true immortality. And that moment came when Amado, the genius scientist of Konoha, began his secret experiments with the cells of Shibai Otsutsuki. The man who one day surpassed the very concept of humanity. Orochimaru watched everything from afar, fascinated, like a patient predator before the perfect prey. He knew that that power was different from anything he had ever touched. And above all, he knew that Amado carried something that he had always desired, the science capable of breaking the boundaries of life and death. That was how one of the darkest agreements in ninja history was born. Orochimaru offered something that only he possessed. The cells of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, the pure essence of regeneration, the living force capable of recreating the flesh and chakra of a god. In exchange, he demanded direct access to the cells of Shibai Otsutsuki. Amado, desperate for the chance to resurrect his daughter, accepted. Both believed they were using each other. Neither of the two imagined the price they would pay for it. Orochimaru returned to his old laboratory, that one hidden under the ruins of a forgotten village. The air was dense, saturated with the metallic smell of blood and the constant buzzing of machines. He knew that the experiment he was about to perform went beyond any human limit. Even so, he smiled. His cold and golden gaze reflected the shine of the blade that cut the flesh of the human test subjects one after another. The laboratory became again the temple of insanity that it once had been. The first DNA infusions failed. The bodies exploded, the chakra became unstable, and the space around distorted. The walls vibrated as if time itself rejected what was being created there. But Orochimaru did not stop. He observed each failure, each scream, each cell fragmenting, and wrote down everything. He did not see tragedy. He saw progress. For months, his body was adapting to the new genetic combinations. He began testing small doses of Otsutsuki DNA mixed with the cells of Hashirama. The effects were devastating. His body, even accustomed to mutations, reacted unpredictably. Violent fevers consumed him for days, followed by periods of unconsciousness. On certain nights, he vomited blood mixed with condensed chakra, a black and shiny substance that burned the ground where it fell. His body twisted, the bones moved under the skin like living snakes. The process of assimilation was painful, more than any torture, but he endured. He always endured. Because within pain, Orochimaru saw only one truth. Evolution requires suffering. At times, he fainted for days. When he awoke, he noticed small changes. His pupils dilated beyond normal, his chakra became cold, alien. He no longer needed to breathe as much as before. His body began to reject human biology. It was as if it were being rewritten by a superior force. One night, upon awakening after a convulsion that almost killed him, he noticed something different. Two small protuberances appeared on his head, right above the temples. At first, they seemed simple deformities caused by mutation, but as the days passed, those protuberances began to harden, to grow, and to shape themselves like horns, similar to those of the very Otsutsuki. Orochimaru laughed in front of the mirror, his pale face illuminated by the cold light of the machines. He knew what that meant. His body was no longer resisting the fusion. It was accepting it. Orochimaru, the man who one day sought immortality through science, was becoming that which the gods feared, a human who ascended alone. But not even he was prepared for what would come next. In the following weeks, the pain intensified. His body began to emit chakra vibrations so dense that they distorted gravity around. The walls cracked. The surviving test subjects went insane just for being near him. The very air became heavy, as if an entity were being born. There was a moment when he believed he was dying. His heart stopped for a few seconds and he fell on the floor of the laboratory. The last thing he saw was his own blood floating in the air, as if the world no longer obeyed the laws of physics. Then everything went dark. Days later, he awoke. But he was no longer the same. His skin had become almost translucent. Chakra flowed through it like a luminous liquid. His voice echoed in different frequencies, mixing with sounds that resembled the roar of a sleeping god. When he looked at his hands, he saw the Otsutsuki symbol pulsing at the center of his palms. Orochimaru had achieved the impossible. He not only fused his body with the power of Shibai, he transformed himself into something beyond life. But the price was high. He could no longer contain the hunger. An insatiable thirst for chakra consumed him. No matter how much he absorbed, the sensation of emptiness never disappeared. Each cell of his body cried for vital energy. It was as if the essence of the Otsutsuki had cursed him, forcing him to devour the chakra of others to maintain his existence. The forests around his hideout began to die. The plants withered only with his presence. Animals fell dead, drained of all energy. Orochimaru, now a perfect hybrid between human and god, observed in silence the result of his ascension. In his gaze there was power, but also a touch of despair. He had achieved immortality, but in exchange had lost what remained of his humanity. He could no longer feel pleasure, sleep, or calm. His body was a living prison, an eternal cycle of regeneration and hunger. Even so, he smiled, because for Orochimaru, pain had always been the price of wisdom. Now he understood the secret that the Otsutsuki tried to hide. True immortality is not only to live forever, it is to become part of the very universal chakra, an entity that transcends the worlds, and he was getting closer and closer to that. While his new horns grew and his body pulsed with divine energy, Orochimaru took his last human step. He sealed all his old test subjects and destroyed the records of his experiments. He no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. Orochimaru was no longer a man. He was a new form of existence. And in the silent shadows of his laboratory, the echo of his laughter spread deep and eternal, like a whisper coming from the abyss. The path of evolution has no end, only new beginnings. At that moment, the ninja world ignored the birth of its future nightmare, because Orochimaru, the man who one day defied death, had finally become a hungry god, and the universe would never be the same. Thank you for following my theory. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications so as not to miss the next videos.